even if the attacks stopped, then for quite a period, I think shipping owners would be very wary about putting their ships into that part of the sea. I mean, the only real way to stop this is to get a ceasefire in Gaza, to stop the killing of civilians there. The Houthi rebels are continuing to attack international shipping in the Red Sea. You might recall that they attacked a British-owned cargo ship the other day, and the crew had to abandon ship. And that's continuing 45 attacks on commercial vessels and naval ships, I think, since this started. And so these attacks, I guess, are intended to show that the US and UK aren't prepared to let a rebel group take international shipping hostage. Are they having an effect? Well, they clearly haven't stopped the missile strikes and the drone strikes, but I think the word you used is right, degrading. I think the aim is to try and reduce their capabilities, reduce their radars, the equipment they use to spot the ships and then target them. But realistically, it's not going to stop because the Houthis are very tough people, very well-armed people. But I think it's trying to send a message that this is not acceptable and they will pay a price for it.
The Pentagon described these attacks as necessary and proportionate. Do you agree?
Well, I personally think they are necessary because I think the alternative is to accept that a rebel group can simply take shots at international ships of whatever nationality passing through this important trade route. And therefore, yes, I think it's right to do it. Is it proportionate? Yeah, I mean, I think it's being very careful not to take civilian casualties, cross-refer to Gaza where there've been massive civilian casualties. No reports of that in these strikes on the Yemen. They are targeted at military structures, military infrastructure. And I think sending a signal, the Houthis would be far better spending their money on the desperate poverty and famine in parts of Yemen than attacking international shipping.
So do you think we are getting closer to a safer passageway for cargo ships there? I mean, you mentioned in one of your answers that you're not going to completely eradicate the effectiveness of the Houthi attacks, but how far away are we from having a secure and safe passage in the Red Sea there?
Well, I think we're still some way away from it because even if the attacks stopped, then for quite a period, I think shipping owners would be very wary about putting their ships into that part of the sea. I mean, the only real way to stop this is to get a ceasefire in Gaza, to stop the killing of civilians there. Remember, the Americans have also taken casualties of their soldiers after an attack in southern Syria a couple of weeks ago. So I think that part of the incentive for the US and UK and others to work so hard on a ceasefire is because it is fueling the kind of tensions that we're seeing with these Houthi attacks on shipping. The sooner this can be brought to a settlement in Gaza, the sooner I think the Houthis can step down from attacking shipping.
Well, Lord Ricketts, this is fascinating because when these attacks started, many people came forward saying, the two are not connected. Even though the Houthi rebels said we are doing this because of what's happening in Gaza, a lot of people said, well, the two things are completely separate. The Houthi rebels need to be dealt with, and this has absolutely nothing to do with Gaza. But you're telling me that you disagree. You think that a solution to safe passage in those ships in that area lies within what happens in Gaza, and that's how it needs to be tackled.
Yes, I do. I mean, and foreign policy is complicated always and messy. I think two things are true. First of all, the US and UK are doing this because they want to try to prevent international shipping being taken hostage in the Red Sea, point one. But point two, this wouldn't be happening except for the war in Gaza. That's what prompted the Houthis to start taking shots at what they call the Israeli-owned ships. Many of them haven't been Israeli-owned. So yes, I think although the motives for what is going on by the US and the UK are to try and prevent the attacks on shipping, the reality is that behind all this is the war in Gaza and the inflaming effect that's having on passions around the Middle East.
And just final question, Lord Ricketts. We hear that there are more negotiations due to take place between the Israeli authorities and Hamas in Qatar. Do you think that there is a landing zone, if you want to call it that, for a ceasefire to take place?
Well, I'm not sure there is while Benjamin Netanyahu is still in office, because the other thing that happened recently is he put out a one-page so-called peace plan, which is nowhere near anything that would be acceptable by the Arab states, for example, or the US and the UK. effectively leaving Israel in charge of Gaza for the foreseeable future, and deciding they will decide who undertakes the reconstruction, who's going to pay for it, although the Israelis certainly won't. So as long as he is there, I think he is seeking to prolong the war, partly to preserve his own position, because he knows after the war there will be a reckoning. Yes, it's encouraging that there are these talks going on for another pause, another hostage release. But when Antony Blinken got quite close to that a couple of weeks ago, Netanyahu ruled it out. So I'm not confident that we're going to be close to a long pause and a hostage release anytime soon. He's certainly not sending the signals that that's what he's prepared for.